I do have two pieces of paper here. One is my introduction to Becky Fitzgerald. The other one is the moment for inspiration list. And if I can pull another guilt trip and somebody can do as good as Nelson, you know, what a deal. Right? Yeah, thank you so much. By the way, Scott, I'm announcing that I am no longer going to be giving introductions or moments for inspiration. I'm moving to France. Ooh, wouldn't that be good? Perfect attendance. We wouldn't miss a lick. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Becky Fitzgerald to you. I've known Becky for quite a while. She's been in parts of my life in a lot of different ways, but one of the things that she does is she has a great interest in the arts, and that's where we've been spending some time recently on the McCain board together, and that's been great. The other thing about Becky that I love is that she has to be a sports nut because she lives with Tim Fitzgerald. And anyway, as you probably know, Becky and Tim put PowerCat Illustrated together, and they've been doing that, and they are the co-publishers or owners of Spirit Speech Publishing. And so if you read anything about K-State sports, you know that Tim and Becky probably have a comment to make about it. But she has another love, and that is at Meadowlark Hills. She's Director of Development there, and she's responsible for creating, fostering, maintaining relationships with donors and resident staff. She just moved into that job in June of 2014, been almost a year now, has been doing it. And she joined their team at Meadowlark Hills as their community relations coordinator, and she went to the sales team in 2005. And anyway, she is from Sumner County. She graduated from a high school just south of where I graduated. She went to Wellington, and I went to Mulvane. They were not even within the same generation. So we did not wear helmets when Mulvane played. She earned a bachelor's in journalism, mass communications here at K-State in 1985, and she was earlier in journalism, serving as a lifestyle editor in Salina at the Salina Journal, and as assistant editor of PowerCat Illustrated. She's here to tell us about the history and what Meadowlark Hills is, and I am excited about it. It is a world-class leading institution for a retirement community, and it's right here in Manhattan. Becky, welcome to Rotary. It's always hard to get rid of Emily.
You got her, you need help.
It's not escaping.
You need the other PowerPoint.
Okay.
There it is.
Go. Hey.
Voila.
Well, next week, Meadowlark Hills will celebrate its 35th birthday. And so when Eric called and asked if I could present today, I was really pleased to do so because of just the timing of it all. And so for the past few years, there's been a really great group of one man and several ladies at Meadowlark who were on the history committee. And I had a chance to be on that committee, and after working at Meadowlark for 12 years, there was a couple of us who had been there with some tenure, and they asked us to join the residents and help along with that process. And so it was just fascinating to me. I look out in the crowd today and I see several residents and passport members and board members, and so I'm pleased that so many of you have, in one way or another, have a connection to Meadowlark. But I'm hoping that maybe what I'll be sharing with you isn't old news. We know that Meadowlark, many of us, is a great place to live and work, but how did we come to be 41 years ago? So that's what I'll be sharing with you today. Let's see. So I'll begin by saying that Meadowlark Hills is more than just a place, since even before its 1980 dedication, it was envisioned, built, renovated, and continually reimagined according to the most groundbreaking concepts in senior living. And before we look back, let's stay in the present day for just a little bit. You may have heard our radio commercials with residents finishing the sentence, Meadowlark Hills is a haven, or as perfect as any place can be. In simple terms, Meadowlark Hills is a not-for-profit, resident-directed community where every employee and decision empowers residents to live the lives that they want. We offer 164 independent living units, and those are apartments and cottages. We have 38 assisted living apartments, 6 healthcare households serving 113 people. And we also offer home health services and transitional care, your get well, go home, recovery and therapy services. Now we're going to jump into our time capsule and go back to 1974 when Marshall Shire was pastor at First Baptist Church. Do any of you remember or know Marshall? Does that sound familiar? He was concerned that some of his congregation were moving from Manhattan to other cities in Kansas and across the nation because those cities had retirement communities. In the fall of that year, others heard and believed Shire's message. Shire and 5 other local ministers formed a committee despite warnings from some about the implications of such an undertaking. The other ministers were Ben Durfeld at First Christian, John Graham at First Presbyterian, Milton Olson at First Lutheran, David Peterson at Blue Valley United Methodist, and Alvin Zimmerman at Trinity Presbyterian. These men had noticed that following World War II, there had been a boom in senior housing and care facilities across the country, and the interesting feature was that these communities were progressive. Independent senior living was being built right along spaces with comprehensive care, and they believed that Manhattan residents should have a similar opportunity. The Area Agency on Aging, there we go. The Area Agency on Aging and the Manhattan Housing Authority were also present at early discussions. And by 1975, the Manhattan Retirement Foundation was born with 13 members, bringing together 2 members of each of the 6 founding churches and 1 older citizen at large, Mary Porter. Looking back in those notes, that just cracked me up. How would you like to be the token older citizen at large? Local attorney Jim Morrison, chair of the new board, joined the Meadowlark Hills project before it had a name, a piece of land, or any money behind it. Morrison jumped in at his pastor John Graham's request and was just 28 years old. He had been practicing law for only 3 years. In this instance, he said his youth was an asset. And I put a quote up there on the screen, and I'll read it to you because it just was really telling, and I really just feel empowered by his inspiration. He said, "I didn't know any better. We were told it needed to be done, and I didn't know we couldn't do it. There wasn't any of it that was easy. It was the right time, there were a lot of people in need, and it just seemed to make sense. At the time, I don't think we perceived where it would be 40 years later, but we took the first step." In 1976, the board recruited 11 members with invaluable expertise. They surveyed older residents in the area about what their ideal community would be. They raised funds to keep the project moving ahead. They employed consultants and management services, and they asked for ideas from K-State architecture students. And then I've listed a few recognizable names of those additional board members that came on in '76. Physician Roger Wrights, the late Gene Ernst, who was a Kansas State University architect, Jack Goldstein, and Margaret Wheat, a registered nurse and First Baptist member. Margaret now lives at Meadowlark. After Margaret joined the board, she became a member of the board service committee, and it was Margaret who is credited with naming Meadowlark Hills. She recalled driving a car full of other committee members to tour a retirement community in Wichita when the group began discussing names for the anticipated Manhattan community. She said a variety of names were tossed out, but then she was struck by the memory of the meadowlarks that had flown up out of the grasses when the board first toured the community's building site north of Kimball Avenue. The name she proposed was Meadowlark Hill, which the entire board approved. But the next year, we had an employee who thought that adding an S to Hill would make the name more melodious, and so the board approved that change. Margaret said some of the other names considered for the community were Kanza Heights, Prairie View, Hilltop House, and a fellow in the back seat suggested Hobble Inn. So she said they still laugh about that. Prior to the service committee's discussion of names, the board had found and purchased land on which to build Meadowlark Hills. It was a 13-acre piece of pasture owned by Lester and Rachel Fry, former home to Fry Farm and Dairy. The deal became official on September 20th of '76. The vision was finally on solid ground, and 50 applicants paid $5,000 each to hold a place at Meadowlark Hills. Shown on this slide is the ceremonial groundbreaking that took place on November 20th of 1977. And I love this picture. It's just a time capsule of the 70s. You see all those plaid coats, and Jim Morrison has on a dandy pair of plaid slacks. I just love that. Construction got underway in the fall of 1978, and we had, at that time, the largest mortgage ever issued in Riley County at more than $3 million. The original plan called for a 12-story independent living apartment building, but the Urban Area Planning Board ruled that the building must comply with anti-earthquake regulations. So the Planning Board eventually approved the 5-story concrete and steel structure that stands today. In April of 1979, John Grace became the first administrator, and by the fall, the community welcomed its first resident, Mary Border, who, if you recall, had joined the board in 1976. She moved to a garden apartment on Meadowlark Road. The original 5-story tower, known today as the West Tower or West Village, received its first occupants, board member Al Messenheimer and his wife May, in February of 1980. A formal dedication and celebration 6 years in the making was held June 8, 1980. Ray Morrison, father of board member Jim Morrison, constructed the bird sculpture that's visible on Kimball Avenue. Does anyone know the interesting little story about that bird sculpture?
Got stolen.
That's right, the first one was stolen. So, rumor has it, it's in Lawrence somewhere. With Meadowlark Hills changing the definition of senior living in Manhattan, it made sense to bring another local skilled nursing facility into the fold. Plans already were in place to make room for more residents and types of care, and 34 acres of land had been annexed for a $38 million expansion plan. Meanwhile, the Riley County-owned Wharton Manor, open since 1958, was facing major renovations to meet modern standards. I've highlighted some dates on this slide. In February of 1996, the boards of Meadowlark Hills and Wharton Manor reached a merger agreement. And on July 1st of 1998, the merger went into effect. And in March of 2001, the Wharton Manor residents began moving into their new homes. The top photo shows the groundbreaking ceremony for the expansion, and the bottom photo shows the construction of the north end of the East Village. The ground level is Miller Place Assisted Living, and the top 2 floors are independent living apartments. Here is the same view from the opposite direction. Taken is from the far north balcony of a 2nd floor East Village apartment. And so this resident can see the 5-story west tower over his left shoulder and 2 of our healthcare households, Onstead and Sloan. Meadowlark Hills is internationally known for its implementation of culture change, a revolutionary way of approaching senior living and healthcare. Culture change means that seniors direct their own daily lives, following their own schedules, choosing their own meals, and deciding their own activities. But how does such a radical departure from the clinical, hospital-like nursing home model come about? In 1988, a man named Steve Shields moved home to Kansas, where his parents were battling Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. Heartbroken and furious about his mother's rapid decline and depressing nursing home surroundings, Shields began studying gerontology at Kansas State and eventually joined Meadowlark Hills in 1994, bringing his parents with him. He was the organization's 4th CEO, with the longest tenure to date at nearly 17 years. Shields' assistant at the time attended a conference at which she learned about culture change and the household model and brought back her enthusiasm for the concepts. Meadowlark Hills was at exactly the right point to make architectural changes that would let the community literally implement culture change from the ground up. Then, inspired by culture change ideals, everyone at Meadowlark Hills, from residents and their families to leaders, board members, and staff, began a movement to redesign the campus from the inside out. The household model is about removing any elements that make residents' homes feel like they're a part of a hospital. Out went the rigid schedules, one-size-fits-all meals, clinical noises, obtrusive medical components. Households have open kitchens, living areas for entertaining, and this understanding that social interaction is a choice, not a requirement. The $38 million renovation was complete in 2001, and during that time, assisted living apartments were added. 2 households, Collins House and Stolzer House, cater to those with memory loss, and they were also added in 2001. This slide shows a Collins House. This is a private room with a shared bath. So to date, there's been 3 major phases of growth. Phase 1 was from 74 to 96. So we were founded, we added duplexes along Meadowlark Road, added healthcare rooms in our dementia care unit. We established our home health agency, and we purchased additional land from the Fry family. During phase 2, we incorporated a culture change initiative, and we expanded our campus. We added 38 apartments in the East Tower, a new entrance with a large community room, living room, and library, 10 cottages, the assisted living households, and 3 new healthcare households. And then phase 3, we added the improvements that make Meadowlark Hills a full-service community by any definition. We added more Prairie Crest cottages on Meadowlark Circle and Meadowlark Valley, 2 more healthcare households, an on-campus physician practice called Meadowlark Hills Medical Professionals, and we do have openings for patients. I know they've actually been getting a run of calls lately from physicians who are retiring in Manhattan, so we do accept new patients from all over town at our medical practice there on campus. Here's a staff member making pancakes in the Roten House kitchen, which you can see is open to the dining room. And then this photo, also taken in Roten House, shows a private room with a private bath. And here are photos from one of our cottages on Meadowlark Valley. This is the living room, and it shows the custom flooring and the built-in bookcase, choices that were chosen by the home's occupants. This is the master bath of the same cottage, and the flooring that they chose for the living room continued in here. These bathrooms were designed to comfortably accommodate people who might one day have mobility issues and need to rely on a walker or wheelchair. Screened-in porches are standard on all the cottages built since 2008. So a discussion, I don't think Meadowlark isn't complete without mentioning some of our amenities, programs, and services that we offer. I have to promote our traveling program, which I started with another employee in 2004. And that's me in the striped shirt with the shorter hair. It's a different color too in that photo. I'm sitting next to Willie Novotny, who was our 5th CEO. And then we also went to, just the other photos of Bernabelle's Cafe, which just got a facelift. Breakfast and lunch are served there, and grocery items are also offered for sale. We offer wellness services and with fitness and therapy, speech therapy. And then we have the Parkinson's program of Manhattan at Meadowlark Hills. That was founded in 2007. We offer lifelong learning at Meadowlark Hills. This is a photo of Dr. Gail Dahl, who teaches a gerontology class both the spring and the fall. And we have they're sitting in the K-State classroom, but we rarely use that for those classes because they're so big. We have to have those in our community room. Today, Meadowlark Hills stays true to the commitment it made in 1974 to create a better community for seniors and to never grow complacent when more is possible. Staff and residents share a belief that life should not only be safe and comfortable, but also be filled with beauty, progress, and excitement about what's to come. Our current and 6th CEO is Lonnie Baker, who was hired in April of 2013, and this slide shows a few of the awards the community's won in recent years. I understand that Lonnie is a member of this Rotary Club, and I'm sorry he couldn't be with us today, but I did bring a photo of him. So on June 15th, we're really excited to start a $1.6 million renovation of Homestead and Sloan houses. These were some of our original houses that were built in the late 70s or 80s, and they're going to get a major facelift here starting next month. And so the residents were asked for their input, and so they have asked for a more functional heating and cooling system, and they're also getting residential style lighting, new carpet, new furniture, so a nice workstation in every room. This slide shows a current room in Sloan House with a shared bath. And so there's a fabric balance on the window, which may or may not match anything in the room. That's just the way it is. And so now those will be gone. The current heating and cooling system is a loud wall unit under the window. And so the people next to the window are cold and the people not next to the window are hot. And the room's lighting is more commercial than residential. That renovation's going to change all of that. These are just some photos of the furniture and fixtures that were chosen for the bedrooms. It was, the Homestead residents liked the cherry finish, and the Sloan residents liked that lighter oak stain. So we just let them pick what they wanted. So I mentioned earlier that Meadowlark Hills is 35 this year, so we're planning a 4-day party, and you all are invited. We're offering activities, tours, seminars from June 1st through 4th. You may have noticed ads in the Manhattan Mercury about that. And if there's many things to take advantage of, if you would like to do so, and if you have any questions about that, I can steer you in a direction or two. And I specifically work for Meadowlark Hills Foundation, so I would just like to talk about some of the work that we do briefly. At Meadowlark Hills, residents in our healthcare households who outlive their financial resources are not asked to leave. The Good Samaritan Fund allow these residents to confidentially receive the same quality of service and life enhancement as those with funds still available. and the fund was established to cover the gap between Medicaid reimbursement and the full cost of care. It currently assists about 45 residents. We also have what we call the Helping Hands Fund, and that benefits employees who have a unexpected health expense, a family tragedy, or a natural disaster-related hardship. Family members often give to different household funds, which offer life enhancement for the residents who live there. And then we also have a Friends of Art Fund. If you've been to Meadowlark, you'll know that we have a nice art collection, and people are interested in nurturing that and expanding it. So I'm ending today's presentation with a couple of images of one of our happy residents, Joanne Edwards. She's shown in this photo taking a line dancing class. And when she was asked about her life since moving to Meadowlark, she said, "There are so many interesting things to do, and the staff is amazing. I'm so thankful that I live here." So thank you very much for having me.
We have time for one question. Yeah. Does Meadowlark have any opinion, one way or the other, as to whether or not Kansas should join the expanded Medicaid?
That is a good question. I wish Lonnie were here for that one. I know that when we are depending on the government for part of our payment, it is hard to budget. And I remember one year in particular, the rules changed mid-budget, and it was a hardship for our residents who then we had to go to them and say, you know, we need to change the rates, we need some more money. So I guess that's maybe not an answer to your question, but we just know that it is a struggle with what we currently receive does not match what we need to pay for care, and so that's where that Good Samaritan Fund comes in.
Becky, thank you very much for being here and updating us. It's a wonderful facility. My folks have lived up there almost 9 years now, and other than the crazy neighbor just to the immediate north, they love it. Bill Stamey would have to be there. I've heard some of the shenanigans that go on next door there. Anyway, thank you very much. And in honor of you being here today, our club will donate a book in your name to the Theodore Roosevelt School Library. So thank you very much for being here. Well, thank you, Nelson, for your words today. Bill and Dan for being here early and greeting. Jim, you did a nice job, and you know that explains a lot. I know you played high school football and you didn't wear a helmet. That clears up a lot. Jared, thank you. You know, a few weeks ago when Roger Wrights was, we anticipated he would not be here. We didn't have a piano player, and I sent out an appeal here in the meeting, and immediately after the meeting, Jared came up and said, I can do that. And 2 weeks later, unexpectedly, Roger wasn't here, and Jared steps in. That's what Rotary's all about. So, Jared, thank you for doing that. Do we have a holiday in appreciation?
Yes, Betty Stevens.
Betty Stevens. Well, next week's program is another one of those that we're going to keep secret until a little bit closer to next week's meeting. It's that good. I will leave you today with a few quotes regarding seniors and senior living. First one, Billy Crystal suggests that by the time a man is wise enough to watch his step, he's too old to go anywhere. And Winston Churchill, who suggested this, don't worry about avoiding temptation. As you grow older, it will avoid you. We are adjourned.